All right, good evening, my friends. What will happen if the United States loses reserve currency status, my friends? I know you're like, well, why do you keep hammering on about this? Well, it's important, okay? I wasn't around or cognizant during Nixon taking us off the international gold standard, and I think we're nearing one of these inflection points. And again, they should have let this happen in 2008, 2009, but they didn't want to embarrass Obama, Bernanke, and none of these people had the political will to do the painful things that need to be done to get us out of this. And basically, it means massive hyperinflation and most likely a multi year, very deep, very painful depression, my friends, as all this bullshit works its way out of the system. And there may be even a new currency system created. A lot of stuff people smarter than me need to figure out, but it could be a major inflection point, my friends, and there will be pain. So brace yourselves. I mean, how do you not financial advice, by the way? How do you possibly navigate through this? I don't know. Maybe get some physical silver. Maybe get some bullets. You never know what's going to be good currency in the meantime, my friends. When the Soviet Union collapsed, vodka was a hot commodity, my friends. So keep that in mind. Yeah, not investment advice. And this is Mises Institute. But the ultimately good thing that would happen is all this bullshit gets worked out of the system. We create a new system, maybe Austrian based, not and John Maynard Keynes gets properly inserted into the dustbin of history in ignominious fashion, my friends. Man, that dude was a piece of work. We're paying the price. And again, should have let this happen in 2008, but no one had the fortitude to go through it. But you only bought yourself 15 years, assholes. So here we go. The past few weeks, major countries have been moving away from the U.S. dollar, as we've been talking about, and they go through, and then they mention Saudi Arabia, the linchpin, because of the petrodollar arrangement. So if the dollar does lose its position, it will be catastrophic for the American economy. Hyperinflation, my friends. Catastrophic for the American people whose backs 80 years of reserve status were built. Well, it helps that you're the last standing major power after World War II. Unless there's going to be a major, major war that could also solve a lot of these problems. I never would put it past these bullshits in charge, these assholes in charge. And it will be subject of billions of foreigners for whom the dollar has met decades of being bullied to history's great bait and switch. Yes, the tables will turn. In late March, Saudi Arabia, again, will price oil in Chinese yuan. Yuan's still largely pegged to the dollar to keep the exchange rate pretty sturdy or pretty steady. And even CNN was worried in a rare display of situational awareness, but Fox controlled opposition, also legacy media, fretted about Weimar hyperinflation. The dollar has been the undisputed global reserve currency since the 40s. Again, looks great on paper. You get to print stacks of paper, and foreigners give you stuff for it, like toasters, cars, and copper mines. The problem is who profits and who gets paid when foreigners crave the green paper. Yeah, it's not you and me. Fuck you guys. Fuck you proles. It's whomever is printing the money, the closest to the printer, my friends, meaning the Treasury, to whom they hand all their ill-gotten profits, and of course Wall Street, the major commercial banks that created the Federal Reserve and are shareholders, my friends. So imagine foreigners didn't want dollars. The feds and the banks could only print a little bit, since printing would create inflation. Because if foreigners don't want dollars, that means Americans are the only ones spending it, and when you increase the American supply, inflation. Pretty simple. And the voters, who who votes for people at the Fed? I don't know. The voters would toss them out. It's great. That's great thought in theory, but if foreigners want a large number of dollars, and pay attention. I don't know if you're dialed into the financial stuff as much as I sometimes am. You got to watch the foreign purchase of the treasury bonds, my friends. It's very telling. If foreigners don't want a piece of it, that's when you should get worried. The Fed and banks can print up a matching amount. Basically, they can meet the demand. It's like a river flowing into the money supply reservoir, match up with a river flowing out to foreigners. The reservoir stays stable. That's what we use in circulation, and voters don't riot. So the river flows into the money supply reservoir with another river flowing out to the foreigners. The internal money supply stays stable. Voters should not notice. But notice where the profits went. The river to foreigners didn't go to the we dollar holders. We are the reservoir. The profits went right through us to the source of the river, the treasury, and back to those Wall Street banks. They pretty much own J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs. They own the Fed, not you or I. So it's neither federal nor reserve. Not really a bank either. So like the rest of our crony financial system, it's a hustle. It's been that way since the incept. And the credit crisis, or the real estate crisis of residential real estate crisis of 2007 and 2008 almost brought the whole house of cards down. And it wasn't just the real estate. It was the derivatives they piled on top of that real estate. They made insane bets, and who knows where those still lie in the system. It's very opaque, my friends. So, it is a hustle. The American people think they're benefiting from reserve status, but the profits were sucked out and handed to the people that designed the institutional fleecing we call a financial system. Here's the problem. What if foreigners don't want dollars, i.e. de-dollarization? Most of these countries have large reserves of dollars, so China is paying them to sell oil in yuan. Maybe the Fed lost the plot and it creates too much inflation. Well, Beijing Biden's doing a good job of that by himself. Demand dries up, the dollar starts to lose value. It is losing value. It's lost about 13-14% since the latest high. And foreigners start to worry that their life savings and corporate treasuries are melting. They sell out of the dollar, a little at first, more and more if it accelerates. Won't start slow, or it will start slow, but it will end quickly, my friends. And there are quadrillions of dollars out there. Quadrillions. In all sorts of very obscure places, mostly those derivatives. Now, the river to foreigners reverses, it flows back into the reservoir, the dollar collapses, that's going to be massive inflation. 70 years of Fed and Wall Street money printing comes rushing back like the tsunami running up a canyon. So, the Fed basically flooded the zone with like $7 trillion worth of liquidity in, I think, May of 2020 to stave off any negative effects from the pandemic, which is a complete scam from beginning to fucking end. We're talking double-digit inflation. I'm thinking like maybe triple-digit inflation over multiple years at a minimum. And I love how they're saying, oh, Biden's bringing inflation down. No. It was up 5% from over year, which I think last March was up like 12%. So it's an additional 5% on top of that 12%. So it's not going down. It's going up, just less quickly. You know this. I think I know this. These people think we're stupid. And again, I don't try to sugarcoat anything. I kind of tell you like it is because I think you're a grown up. Hell, I assume I'm talking to myself, a 50-year-old dude. But I could be wrong. It could be all women. If they screw this up, reserve currency status could turn out to be a trap and an absolute catastrophe for the American people. So the stages. For starters, foreigners don't need as many dollars. That means extra dollar. There are extra dollars that nobody wants. That means the price of the dollar is falling. Note it's falling, and it gets weaker. And it's slow at first, then picks up speed, and then there is a mad dash for the exits because the first ones out only lose a little, and the longer they wait, the more they lose. And then the bag holders. Americans become basically the bag holders, and there will be, again, quadrillions potentially of dollars being pumped back into the reservoir, i.e. our currency in circulation. Well, M3, I should say. The only people on Earth who actually are obligated to use the dollar, thanks to an obscure law passed in 1862 as a wartime emergency, that has stuck around for 151 years. So they have no choice unless you swap your dollars for gold, Bitcoin. I don't have much faith in Bitcoin. Again, not financial advice. Gold, I think, is probably a loser too because you can't buy bread with gold. You might be able to buy bread with silver, though, or you may be able to just trade bullets for bread, or hell, it might be bottle caps for all we know. You go down with a ship if all your money is basically in the bank or the stock market, because that's going to get torched as well. So what happens to those Americans? A falling dollar drives up the price of everything that comes into this country from abroad. But it also drives up the price of anything traded on world markets. So the raw materials and imported components that drive American factories, there are still a lot of American factories and sustain American consumers. So first to jump would be gasoline, heating fuel, and food. Fertilizer also. The United States used to be a net generator of, basically they were energy independent under the evil orange man Donald Trump. And the good news about that is the United States is fairly, um, they can feed their own population. So don't worry about that aspect. And the food market is a world market, though, along with the petro market. And of course, prescription medicine, since China has a creeping stranglehold thanks to our idiotic overregulation. And this is more or less true for every consumer product. China dominates, and most of the times you don't really need consumer products. So you'd be surprised what you could live your life without. So the expensive commodities and input prices get poured around through the supply chain, yanking prices up in industry after industry: cars, construction materials like steel or concrete, clothes, furniture, TV, computers, and medical devices, unless we manufactured them here. Unless we manufactured them here. Gone are the days of affordable luxuries, probably for a while. Now you gotta work for them. And this is when the main event begins. Capital flows. Foreigners will get nervous. They'll not only sell the dollar, they'll sell assets denominated in dollars, again, quadrillions, my friends. Starting with the most liquid: stocks, bonds, and U.S. Treasuries. They're easy to trade. IBM stock is a lot easier to trade than a factory in Wisconsin. Taiwanese factory in Wisconsin. 40% of American stocks are owned by foreigners, and about 1/3 of corporate bonds. That's a lot. That's trillions of dollars in corporate bonds. And if foreigners start fleeing, both will plunge. It could destroy your 401k and drive up borrowing costs for companies to impossible levels. So I was around briefly in the Carter era, and I know that my dad anecdotally told me his first mortgage where we lived in Maryland, I believe, had an 18% interest rate. It could get way worse than that, my friends. Of course, this will lead to mass bankruptcies. On the top of the wave of bankruptcies, the Fed is already engineering to try and stop the inflation it started. I think the genie's out of the bottle, my friends. We shall see. 1/3 of U.S. treasuries are owned by foreigners. That's over $8 trillion. If foreigners start dumping those, they believe send U.S. government debt service soaring by hundreds of billions of dollars in a year. And the net tax inflows will be reduced as well by a crushing depression, my friends. Maybe the United States will default. I don't know. Well, technically we can't default because we print our own currency, but more likely it forces the Fed to step in and buy up all the foreign demand, i.e. the Bank of Japan strategy, and that will flood yet more money into the economy. Luckily, Japan was able to stave it off, but they had several lost decades, my friends. That wouldn't look good here in the United States. So, and then inflation would march back towards double digits. It's going to get way higher than 10%. That's my guess, anyway. There are ways to stop it. I don't know of any. With Washington Clown Show to raise the debt ceiling, the Republicans need to fucking grow a goddamn pair of nuts and say, fuck you, we're not raising the debt ceiling. And of course, the sanctions that scare foreign countries off the dollar. If they build an alternative to SWIFT, countries like Russia will just say, yeah, we can't use your shitty SWIFT system. Fuck off. We've got 3 other options now. And Washington isn't remotely close to the serious thinking it will take to right this ship, because we don't have serious people running the show. The world sees this. They're not dumb. Losing reserve currency status would savage the American economy, and it would savage the American people. Remember that 2014 Deagle report, my friends? They may have been onto something. No country needs the reserve currency status. It doesn't benefit the people, but like climbing a cliffside with no gear, once you get halfway up, you better not let go. So yeah, that's Peter St. Ange, and this is the Mises Institute again, Mises.org. Long one, my friends, but an important one. And I know, man, I know I'm kind of deadpan, but dry, if you will. But this is serious. I'm not going to try to talk down to you and sugarcoat this. This is dead serious. So that's it. That's all we're going to do, man. Pick up some non-perishable food. And God bless.